Yippee! Hi, welcome. Welcome to my presentation, Archiving Fandom, Save Those Pixels. Meet the panelist. Hi, I'm Terra, she, they, Viridiansilver on Archive of Her Own, Tumblr, and Blue Sky. I'm an artist, a writer. I love tropes. I'm whimsy-pilled. I used to be a lurker, but in the past, like 2 to 3 years, I've started actively participating in fandom, and I'm also a gamer. Statement of intent. My goal with this presentation is to encourage fans to take a more active role in fandom conservation. I'm new to this subject, so please be patient with me if I make any mistakes in my research. Okay, context. What makes up fandom? Blogs, journal entries, fan fiction, fan art, cosplay photo shoots, fan songs, convention panels, crafts, video essays, fan cams, edits, parodies, skits, abridged series, reanimate episodes, fan weeks, and the list goes on. Just basically anything. Any kind of transformative work made by fans, that's fandom. Why archive fandom? The truth is, history that isn't properly recorded is forgotten. In the age of online fandom, we need to be aware of how unstable the digital landscape is. Posting online doesn't guarantee the longevity of a fan work or ensure there can be future access. Governments can decide to criminalize queer expression, as China has banned AO3. Sorry if you hear like a car revving up in the background, by the way. I'm recording this at a park. um, Credit card companies can restrict what types of art we buy or sell. Examples, MasterCard and Visa have made it very difficult to purchase not safe for work art and not safe for work fanzines. Websites can change their terms of service to censor speech or and or outright ban certain artistic expression. If a social media site collapses, all the works hosted there will go down with it, or simply a fan can suddenly erase their works account or website from the internet. Special emphasis must be placed upon preserving fan works depicting sex, queerness, kink, and taboo subject matter. Fan works of this variety are the first to be thrown under the bus by censorship laws. But how do I know it's worth saving? That abridged series you watched as a kid that kind of aged like milk, worth saving. That dark, edgy fan art that's totally OOC with oversaturated colors, still worth saving. That not safe for work art that has an incredibly niche kink that most people simply won't relate to, you're never going to believe this, still worth saving. Even if not for the purpose of entertainment, all parts of fandom deserve to be archived for historical context. How will future fans know about 2020's fandom, the good, the bad, and the ugly, if no one keeps a record? Save everything, or as much as you can. Hello, everyone. This is Editing Terra from the future. And so, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be interjecting at different points with additional information or just me yapping. So be prepared to hear that. And also a disclaimer, I'm not necessarily endorsing the websites and softwares, etc., that I discuss. Just because I bring it up here doesn't mean I'm like, oh, it's perfect. Oftentimes a lot of them are very flawed and there's pros and cons to all of them. And the digital landscape is quite literally changing every day as of 2026. So a site could be really cool for something today and be really awful for that very same thing tomorrow. That is just how it goes. But yeah, if you see the orange text, that's me and I'm adding stuff that I forgot to put in the first time. Thank you so much for listening. All right. So, in this presentation, I'm going to be covering sort of two general types of archiving. There's the personal archiving aspect that's, archiving for yourself or personally on the behalf of another person or persons. And then there's community archiving projects put in place by libraries, colleges, government organizations, independent groups and organizations, and those community archives have like better resources and ways to store and search through their databases of fandom works. And I'll go a bit more into that later, but first I'll be covering the personal archiving aspect. And the great thing about both avenues is that it's kind of they use the same kind of like general practices for archiving. Like the way you would save a file doesn't change based on whether you're doing it yourself or whether like a community archive project is doing it. So yeah, how-tos. Mostly according to The Complete Guide to Personal Digital Archiving, edited by Brianna Marshall. That book it's kind of a library science textbook in a way. It's very dense and it kind of covers a lot of different avenues of archiving from like a more professional stance. And it goes even into like the ethics of how things are archived, why they're archived, what is archived. And it's really a great educational read. Very dense though. So, you know, I like struggled going through down all the different points, but I was able to take sort of the core points of like how to archive different types of media, and that is kind of like the meat of my presentation. Although I did do research independently from the textbook, that was like major source for me. So yeah, and it was written in 2018. So some of its references are a little out of date because, when it comes to the digital landscape, things come into existence and then die just as quickly. So keep that in mind. And I've tried to sort of help with that by bringing in my own experience and my own references. You'll see. You'll see. We'll get to there. Like, yeah, I'll just keep going. Okay, so general advice. Make it a habit. Technically, archiving is a never-ending process. Physical media like hard drives, DVDs, and CDs can deteriorate after 5 to 10 years. Digital media runs the risk of being saved in an obsolete format or becoming corrupted. The best we can do is update and renew our archives every few years. And that's kind of frustrating because it means you can't just throw things in a pile and expect that pile to, live forever. Super sucks, but making it like just putting in a reminder every half decade or so to kind of go through your things is kind of like a spring cleaning. Don't overwhelm yourself. Gather all meaningful fan works in one big digital folder or physical pile to start and slowly work from there. Ideally, save files in 3 locations. Have a master location, your primary computer, an external hard drive, and cloud storage for good measure. File naming guide. Unique, meaningful, and concise are the words you need to keep in mind for your files. Avoid complex characters that some computers won't be able to read. Smaller collections are generally better than larger collections. Large collections run a higher risk of corruption. And also just misplacing your files in general. The larger they are, or yeah, the greater in quantity there are, it gets trickier to maintain. Quality over quantity. And when I say quality, I'm not necessarily talking about file format quality. I'm talking about how significant what it is you're selecting is to yourself and others. I know I said save everything earlier, but making meaningful selections is better than having like 20 copies of something that's like similar. Do you know what I mean? How do I explain this? As an artist myself, sometimes I'll have like like 5 to 10 copies of like the same illustration with slightly different colors and slightly different lighting. Um and for like archive's sake, you don't need to keep every single version of everything. Just keep the best one or your favorite one, or if you can't decide, maybe 2. but like the best and highest quality one should be the one that takes priority. Yeah. So that's like my explanation from like an artist standpoint. Don't use phones/tablets to store important fan works. Transfer files to a computer, an external hard drive, or cloud storage. And the reason for that is just because when it comes to mobile devices, I feel like those kind of like get lost, broken, stolen the easiest. And like, there goes your file. There goes your master copy. So yeah. All right. So on to our first big category, image archival. Examples of images you'd want to archive for fandom would be cosplay photos, event photos, photos of traditional art, photos of convention booths, photos of fan merch, etc. Prioritize common file types that will have readability in the future. JPEG is the most common format captured by cameras, and it's also small in size. The downside is that they do have a risk of like data compression. They are very like, because they're small, you know, there goes some of the quality. So when it comes to archiving, not everything is going to be like wowza, the best quality you've ever seen of anything. It's more about longevity than it is about how fucking amazing something looks. And hopefully in the future, we'll have even better file formats that, you know, don't run as high of a risk of becoming obsolete, but still maintain amazing quality. But for now, JPEG is your best bet. But if you're going for like a more professional look, TIFF files are actually pretty decent. It's a lossless image format. The downside is they're pretty big files. So I don't know. For cosplay photography, I would maybe recommend TIFF, but for everything else, I'd say JPEG. All right. Next big category, audio-visual archival. Examples in fandom would be AMV/tributes, edits, animation memes, podcast episodes, comic fandubs, animatics, TikToks, convention panels, live streams, etc. If you have analog audiovisual media, like, say, like film, if you have like physical film of something, first of all, that's really cool. But second of all, it is in your best interest to start the digitization process because those will deteriorate, those will fall apart, those will become unreadable. And so having digital files can just boost its chance of lasting. With digital audiovisual archival, it follows a very similar guideline to digital photography with like using file types with a high chance of readability. So for audio files, MP3 format is pretty universal, pretty common, pretty good. For video files, MP4 format, common, quality, a lot of things can read it. And just in general, on your computer, it is good to have a transcoder of some kind to read various file formats. I wrote formals. Ah, I hate that my brain didn't catch that. An example of a transcoder is VLC Media Player. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about meta, which I neglected to mention before. So what is metadata? Metadata is the information surrounding the data. Think of it as that educational plaque next to a painting at a fine arts museum. Metadata can tell us who the creator is, the date something was made, and other useful identifying information. Here's an example of what metadata the Library of Congress recommends for archiving digital photography. So as supported by format, they want the title, creator, creation date, place of publication, publisher/producer/distributor, contact information. So that's kind of like their main stuff. The title, creator, creation date, place of publication, publisher/producer/distributor, and contact information. And then they have like a little include if available, common embedded schema, language of the work, other relevant identifiers, subject descriptors, abstracts, key or reference to each data field, and technological production information. So we don't have to think about most of that. I think title, creator, creation date will do it for us with our fanworks. Um, and I'll talk about special cases of like, I guess, additional metadata or like specialty metadata that might be included with something. Um, you don't have to even include metadata, but you maybe should. You maybe should. I feel like for me, um, the naming of a file is kind of where I would have maybe like the title and creator information. But on like the actual files, you can go in and like edit like the hidden like information, like the metadata from there. And so I imagine that that is where the Library of Congress recommends you put the information, like you put further information. But if you're unable to edit and like add metadata or alter metadata on the actual file, including a separate document that's like, you know, I guess piled with or compiled alongside the other files should do the trick just fine. Yeah, it's just additional stuff. Okay, intermission. External storage recommendations. External hard drives. USB-A is a common type, and as well as USB-C. I personally have a USB-A external hard drive. SD cards are for your camera or just general phone game devices. There's the SDHC, which is 32 gigabytes, the SDXC, which is like up to 2 terabytes. And those, like, I feel like are generally what the average fan might actually utilize, unless you're working with some seriously large, like, projects. Those should be just fine. Micro SD cards are the ones for smartphones, game devices, etc. They can also be used in cameras, of course. Um, yeah, those are like the general runs for SD cards. For DVDs, there's a ton of types of DVDs, way more than I ever thought there were. The DVD-R is for one-time recordings. DVD-RWs, the rewritable kind. DVD plus RDL are the ones that can store up to 4 hours. And there's the DVD-RAM, which stores computer programs. CDs, there's a bunch of types too, but I only mentioned 2 here because those are the most relevant. For fandom purposes, there's the CD-R for one-time recording and the CD-RW, which are the rewritables. And just as with everything, adapters are your best friend. Okay, intermission part 2. Cloud storage recommendations. So I only use Google Drive, and I'm looking to move to something else soon, but for now, that's the only one that I have significant experience with. So the rest are just kind of recommendations I've seen thrown around across the internet. Microsoft OneDrive, Mega, iCloud, Filin, pCloud, Kufer, um, Backblaze, or maybe Blackblaze is what it's supposed to be. I don't remember. I haven't used it, but I've heard things about it. And I put a note here, please research properly before handing your data over to companies. Unfortunately, not all storage providers are trustworthy. So yeah, like don't put your master copy in cloud storage because there is a chance it could be mishandled, you could lose your stuff, and then there goes your master copy, you know? All right, now we're on to social media archival. An example for fandom would be personal accounts, parody/roleplay accounts, fan week promotion accounts, fandom calendar accounts, and fanzine accounts, etc. And I wanted to talk about this especially because I believe that fan week promotion accounts and fanzine accounts should 100% be backed up like like there needs to be an emphasis on backing those up, because I feel like so frequently after a project is over, everything just gets deleted and wiped and thrown out. And I think that's kind of sad because, so many fans like work so hard to put together this project for the fandom, and like it just kind of gets like dismissed or like treated like it's not as important as it is for like, I guess, the history of fandom overall. Because I feel like a fan week that runs at the start of a show versus a fan week that runs as like an anniversary project way after a show has ended, it kind of it can kind of like be a point of reference, like it's cool historical stuff for fandom and it should be saved. And also I'm like really nosy and I just want to see stuff, and I and I like browsing through things. I don't know. I'm like the curious type. I want to see those things that that happened before I was into a fandom. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm the kind of person, I get into dead fandoms a lot. And so it's just nice to see what was going on before I got there. But, I digress. Rant over. I put into excerpts from the book I mentioned, um, kind of just showing social media archival from like a library or like library science perspective. Issues of privacy complicate the archiving of many social media platforms. Just as a library could not preserve a handwritten letter without the library's owner allowing the library to have access, this is also the case with social media behind a password wall. For most social media accounts, preservation falls to the individual user or group that maintains the account. So, from a legal standpoint, it's difficult, it's tricky for organizations and libraries to archive individuals' accounts. Like, it's kind of on you, the individual, to archive your own stuff when it comes to social media and, like, your posts and everything. So that's just something to consider, because it's like if we don't do this, no one's going to really do it for us, especially not without permission. All right. Social media archival part 2. Most, if not all, social media sites allow you to download your account's records straight from them. However, not all of them use the same formats. For example, Blue Sky uses the CAR file format, which for the life of me I cannot understand how to use, and Tumblr uses HTML. If possible, HTML is the ideal file format for your archive socials. Additionally, there are websites that help with downloading individual posts and audio-visual media from posts, such as SaveGram, Pubblr, SaveTwitter, SnapTwit, etc. You can just literally just Google different like website downloader, and like that'll, like, whatever website or social media you're using, there's something for it, which is super cool. But also, it does like there's a lot of options and you're not really sure which ones are the best ones, and so you really got to do your own research because there's a lot out there. It's very oversaturated. So I want to give a special focus to fan games because it can be kind of a complex category. Games themselves come in so many different file formats, and there are so many different consoles and ways to play a game and things a game might need to be able to operate at its fullest. Like, if your computer is not up to certain standards, there are certain games that just will not fucking run on your computer. And so it's a bit tricky, and I don't really know all the ins and outs, and so I'm not going to sit here and preach to you as if I do. I'm just going to give you semi-general advice as far as what to do with your fan game files. But I suggest for those of you who actually make fan games, well, you probably already know how to save your files best, but looking into file types that will boost the longevity of your work would be I guess, your route, your homework, the thing that you got to do. Um, but yeah, on to my semi-general advice. Keep your game files on an external hard drive, flash drive, external SSD, or writable disk. And the reason for that is because on your main computer, if you're using it for other things, you just don't want the possibility of accidentally deleting anything. You don't want the possibility of things getting corrupted. You don't want the possibility of an update messing up your files or a virus messing up your stuff. Or yeah, you just don't want you want your files to be able to be somewhere separate where they can just sit and not be bothered by anything else happening. So that's why putting them on an external hard drive or disk or something, putting them somewhere separate, physically separate, can help them to just, remain untouched, remain pure over in their like game files. So yeah. Also, sometimes I know you might have like different, I guess, different working files, and so to not confuse those working files with like the final finished thing, keeping them separate can just be nice. Also, having a backup of your backup, especially for a game, you know, good. It's a good idea. Next, record a video of the software in use and save that in an MP4 file format. So that's because just in case your game just stops working, cannot be played, you don't have any better files, your very last file, it was corrupted, it got all fucked up, you don't have it anymore. Real tragedy. If you have a recorded video of the software in use of you playing the game, running around a bit, it doesn't need to be like a full gameplay. Like you don't need like the full length of the game plus all the extra endings. It's like just just a game just video of the game, like concept and like basic function and kind of like the UI, what it looked like. That will be, satisfactory. And again, that's just in case, that's worst case scenario, you have evidence of the game existing in the first place. Yeah. And consider including separate metadata for like instructions and controls, um, game plot, gameplay. Again, if your file does get corrupted, can't play it anymore, it's nice to have that extra detail there. Consider like this is like extra. You don't got to do this part. This is like a little beyond saving the actual game. But compiling game development work, such as like a game design document, making of videos. So that would just be like some people do work in progress videos of their gameplay as they're developing their game. And so if you have those videos, you can compile them together into one big old video and maybe like cut it up so it's not super long. And that can just be like an extra archive of, I guess, your process making the game. And a PDF of like the game script and etc. So that's again going above and beyond. If you're interested in that, I say go for it. You know, it's cool to have extra cool stuff for fans. Just I think it's neat. All right, so sharing your fan game. There's itch.io. I think I'm pronouncing that right. That's how I've always pronounced it. Itch.io. There's Game Jolt. I've never actually used Game Jolt or been over there, but I hear it mentioned. There's Newgrounds. There's personal websites. I see some people are able to like have their games playable in browsers to begin with. So that's fascinating. And there's also sharing via cloud storage services. And I put a little warning here of like be super careful with making fan games because not every franchise, not every creator, not every company is going to be comfortable with the existence of fan games. And if they catch whiff of anything, it could mean a lot of legal trouble. So definitely, um, definitely feel out the vibes before jumping into a larger fan game project, because could the worst thing would be a company sending you a cease and desist when you're like almost done with a game, almost ready to release it to the fans, and the whole thing has to be scrapped and like wiped. Because like the legal shit, it gets scary. It gets like to be a not good place. Um so yeah, just be aware of those things, and respect the creator's wishes, and I guess make sure you're not claiming anything as your own. Make sure your work is derivative enough or separate enough from the original that it is very clearly a fan game and not just the actual game, the the real game with something like with new paint. And I'm sure you people who do make fan games, you already know this and you're already aware. So I'm not going to keep preaching to you because you know more than me. But yeah, that's fan games. All right. So on to fan songs. Generally, you can follow what the Vocaloid composers are doing. If Miko's there, you're probably fine. If you're seeing a bunch of Vocaloid songs there, you can post your fan songs there, and it should be generally fine. Um, yeah, popular sites I see Vocaloid people posting their songs. It'd be SoundCloud, Bandcamp, YouTube. Oh my gosh, so many amazing YouTube Vocaloid songs. I love you, YouTube. Sometimes, etc. When saving your files, MP3 file format's the best for just the audio, and MP4 files for if it's video, if there's visuals. If you can have both, I say go for both. Have an audio only file and then have your video file, even if there's visuals to your fan song. And include metadata of the lyrics. Include the lyrics. Include lyrics. Include lyrics. Include a lyric file, text file, something. Include lyrics. um, if sheet music exists, save that too. And as with video games, with fan songs, you need to be careful regarding copyright. Some franchises are more strict than others, especially across cultural lines. Some artists are more strict. Some companies, some governments are more strict than others. It really just depends. And so you just want to be careful, because some cover songs are going to be fine, and then other cover songs are going to get like muted or just completely taken down. Um, which is another reason you should definitely be saving multiples of these files, because if if your finished polished version of your song is only available on one site and that gets taken down because copyright and just wiped, and you don't have any other good files, like you just did not save it correctly, or you just lost the file, don't know where it is, or it was a long time ago and you just no longer know where the file is, having it somewhere else, like you need to you need to have it somewhere else. Please don't let your fan songs become lost media, even if you think they're cringe. Please. Sharing is caring. Cross posting guide. So I've kind of sectioned it off into safer work, social media to post, and then there's safer work and not safer work friendly social media. Though just because something is not safe for work friendly does not mean it is kink friendly. A lot of these websites, just in general, um, have different views on what is considered explicit, um, and all of that. It really just it varies, unfortunately. So on the safer work side, you have Tumblr. Some artistic nudity is okay, but they're very much like nothing explicit, no porn, no just straight up sexual content. Um, there are safer work Mastodon instances, Instagram, TikTok, Rednote, YouTube, PeerTube, which is like a Fediverse version of YouTube, Daily Motion, Twitch, Vimeo, and I believe in Vimeo's TOS, they're okay with some artistic nudity, but like Tumblr, nothing explicit, no porn, all that jazz. Okay, so now on to the safer work and not safer work social media. You've got Blue Sky, and they actually let you label. They're pretty in depth with their labels on sexual content, but I've heard things about them being like a little bit anti-kink in some regards. You know, it really just you really just have to read the DOS. Pixiv, I've heard good things about. There's not safe for work Mastodon instances. Dreamlith, Pillow Fort, AO3, Squidge World, Patreon. That's kind of iffy though, because I know with certain credit card companies, they've kind of like pressured Patreon into being. I don't know. You're gonna have to check. You're gonna have to check the DOS because I've heard some not safe for work artists being able to thrive on there, whereas others get booted. So you really just gotta like know what kind of art you're making, and what kind of categories it fits into, and that'll kind of help you gauge which sites are going to be safe or not safe for the kind of work you make. Newgrounds, and here's a non-traditional one. OnlyFans. I think if you're posting like a sexy Marth Fire Emblem cosplay, it can just be posted on OnlyFans. It's the thing about OnlyFans though, it's like not fandom. It's not made for fandom. Like it's not made for it, but you can still do that if you want. For all of you, people who like to do sexy cosplay stuff and all that jazz. Same thing with FetLife. It is actually like a kink site. It is. I've heard it described as kinky Facebook. Um, so for those of you kinky cosplayers, that might be a good place to post your um photos as well as kinky art. Yeah, it's pretty non-traditional and definitely won't be for everybody because it's not going to give you like a real fandom experience. But, it's just there if you want to cross post. It's just there. It's just another way to preserve your stuff and have it on another site. I've heard good things about Telegram. I've never used it for myself. And I do use Discord, but, they've got age verification stuff rolling out that's kind of making it an iffy place for the future. So, just something to think about. There's also personal websites. I've never made one myself. I don't know how to, but one day I would like to. And for those of you who do know how to make personal websites, I definitely suggest it. Um, Even with personal websites, though, you're still beholden to whatever laws from your country on what kind of not safe for work expression you can have and like you can put up on that site. So just be aware of that as well, because, as with individual companies, individual governments also have differing views on artistic expression and kink and queer sexuality and all that jazz. It gets really it gets really exhausting, to be honest. So be open to alternatives. Be open to any new websites that pop up. Advocate politically for just better rules around or more lenient rules around artistic expression. That's really the best that you can do. I wish there was like a clear cut, hey, here's sites you could definitely be okay posting on. Here's sites you definitely can like use forever and ever. But that's just not the reality. Digital instability is serious, unfortunately. But, hey, we can do the best we can, and we can just post to as many places as we can, and we can make sure that we have our master copies on like our actual computers, printing out what we can print out, um, using cloud storage, having hard drives, external hard drives. That's, the best you can do. And that's that. So, yeah. Okay, so this is a little bit of an update. Discord is kind of still being, like towing itself towards the age verification stuff, which is kind of not good. So some alternatives would be Matrix and Fluxer. I think Fluxer's in its beta, and Matrix, like, you can go ahead and make an account now if you wanted to. I have a Matrix account, um, and I feel like it's pretty similar to Discord. You don't get the voice chat, you don't get, I guess, as nice of a user interface, but it is safer than Discord right now. Sort of, somewhat. There's pros and cons. There's Discord really is great in a lot of ways, but the directions it's going, I don't know how long it'll be great, So, yeah, those are just other options. You don't have to try them. They exist, and I've heard of them, and I've used Matrix, but only recently. I don't know what direction Matrix is really going in either, so. And there's Patreon alternative, Subscribestar. I see some not safe for work artists using that instead of Patreon. So there's an option. And there's also, I just want to mention some printing for people who want to print not safe for work art or zines or, any kind of visual media, really. Mixim has a pretty open policy for that kind of art. Imprintdigital.com also has a pretty open policy. And then I would also suggest, just in general, like checking out just like a local printing scene, like around you, looking for print places around you. Of course, it depends so much on where you live and the culture you're from. But here in the US, I feel like local print shops, unless you're doing some like real outlandish, and I don't mean outlandish in a negative way. Unless you're doing some real outlandish, not safe for work, local printing should be just fine for all your fandom needs. So for website archival in general, I'm not super knowledgeable about it. Examples for how this would be in fandom would be like for personal websites, the websites of others with permission, or if they've been abandoned, given to the public, fan convention / event websites, etc. From what I have gathered, web crawlers and web scrapers are utilized to archive full websites / pages. However, I've never used them myself, so I can't give you too much advice on how it goes. From the book that I read, she gave a couple of examples, but because the book was written in 2018, I'm not sure how well they hold up to now. Like, I don't know if they're still around. I don't know if they're still reliable. But examples were WAIL, Heritrix, HTTrack, WGit, WPull. Again, I don't know if those are still relevant in 2026. So I included, like, from a Google search I did of just other website archivals or archivers. I think it's called Apify's website archiver, Archive Today, Page Freezer, Stilio, etc. I suggest doing your own research about them because I haven't used them, and so I cannot endorse any of them. Okay, now we're on to my favorite part, paper and stuff, paper goods. Examples from fandom would be fanfic, fanzines, prints, stickers, charms, convention brochures, convention badges, etc. Paper is strong. It can last for hundreds of years if cared for properly, hence why historical documents can be put on display in museums. So really, you can't go wrong with printing your beloved digital fan works and storing them safely. Websites like Archive of Our Own and Squid World offer download options for fic. Use PDF file format to print. Yeah. If you have printed materials already and they have not been digitized, consider scanning them to your computer. If you have 3D fan works such as clay or woven crafts, consider getting them properly photographed, digital photography, so they can enter your digital archive. So paper and etc. Part 2. Tips to help you keep your goods safe for a long, long time. Store in a dry, cool, clean, and static environment. And by static environment, I mean an environment where they're not going to be moved around a bunch, they're not going to be shuffled. Yeah, somewhere they can really just sit. Avoid attics and basements or places, avoid light exposure. Keep away from radiators and vents. Use protective folders/containers. Store papers unfolded and flat or rolled if they're oversized. Use isolated storage for acidic paper so they don't affect surrounding papers. Know what type of paper you are storing. Not all papers are the same, and they can affect each other real bad. I know this as a traditional artist. I use a bunch of different papers. Also, depending on the material you use on a paper, those can affect other papers. So any charcoal artists, graphite artists, painters, I'm sure you already know, those are materials you really got to be careful about sealing and storing because they can rub off and affect surrounding things. For resin goods, charms, and standees, avoid UV rays, heat, sharp objects, harsh chemicals like soaps, lotion, and shampoos. If you aren't sure how to clean certain material, it is better to research or ask the manufacturer rather than risk permanent damage. All right, intermission. Physical storage recommendations. Acid-free plus, I believe it's pronounced linen-free? I'm not really sure, but it's a type of chemical. So you're going to want folders, mats, and documents that are acid-free and linen-free. Look for when you're buying, look for archival quality boxes. Buy sleeves for your trading cards, stationery, mini prints, etc. Use cases for CDs and DVDs. Consider a storage chest/trunk. I personally use a trunk for my art books and fanzines and stuff, and that has kept them from getting any kind of discoloration. Yeah. Use large plastic shipping totes. That's like just another option. You don't have to use them, just another option. They're waterproof and durable and great for travel. When I've needed to ship my stuff for moves, I just use large plastic shipping totes because it's like I feel like it's the really only way to guarantee your stuff doesn't get fucked up in transit. So there's also the trusty cardboard box. It is slightly risky, but it is cheap, easy to come by, and it's better than nothing. It's so much better than just leaving your stuff out in the open. All right, so community archives. A list of resources. This is just the tip of the iceberg, by the way. There are so many other projects going on. These are just the ones I've seen kind of at the forefront through the research that I've been doing. The Organization for Transformative Works, OTW, has their Open Doors project, their Fan Culture Preservation Project, Fanlore Wiki, Fanzine Scan Hosting Project. There's Fandom Wiki in general, and their Shipping Wiki. And I love the Shipping Wiki. I think more people should submit their ships, like silly ship names, to the Shipping Wiki because I'm nosy and I like looking through and seeing different kinds of ship names that are like cool and unique. I'm from the Yu-Gi-Oh fandom, so I have an attachment to ridiculous and long ship names. There's the Bowling Green State University. They have their Brown Popular Culture Library. You can donate fandom materials to them as well. There's the Library of Congress Web Cultures Archive, which helps with website archival. There's Internet Archive's Wayback Machine, which website archival. There's Archive It, which is, I believe, all about website archival. There's First Fandom Experience, which covers 1920s to 40s sci-fi fiction and fantasy fanworks. And more community archiving. As far as digital resources go, the Library of Congress is fantastic, an amazing resource. The University of Nebraska at Omaha Chris Library, Council on Library and Information Resources, Gaylord Archival Resource Center, etc. And literally just Google, just Google colleges and universities and libraries, and you will be able to find projects for like pop culture and fan work archival, and just also personal archiving in general. There's a ton of free resources available on the web and even workshops. It's all pretty cool. Just look into it. Totally worth it. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. Yay! This is my first time really doing this ever, so I hope you guys enjoyed. And, you know, even if I made some mistakes, I hope that you took this and are encouraged to look up your own stuff and and ways to archive and save your own works. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. Here's my sources. Also, just in general, like Library of Congress really just was the goat this whole time. Like they did great. they they really have like it all there perfectly. It's dense though, but their collections care website or like web page has just about, I don't want to say every kind of media preservation thing, but I feel like for fanworks it covers what we need. It covers what we need. Yeah. Yippee!